What really happened behind the recording studio door? Why did Jin suddenly snap in public? Dan, is this a sign that he can no longer stand the pressure from within HYB himself? Echo's recording turned out to be Jin's most honest moment, and everyone was speechless when he finally spoke up. Too honest? Or is this what has been hidden all this time? Jin snapped in public, and no one was ready for what he said. Too honest? Jin grumbled to the staff about this knowingly in public. This happened during the recording session of the Echo album. No one is really ready. Not the staff. Not the army. Maybe not even Jin himself. But the words came out. Firm. Hard. And it sounded like a crack from something that had been forced to remain intact. It all started in silence. The studio where Jin recorded Echo Such a Long, awaited solo album is a place where gentle voices are born and emotions are recorded without interruption. But that day was different. Unusually, HYB's in-house documentation camera records more than just the recording process. Their recording explosion. The question is, what made Jin, known as the oldest member who is patient and professional, finally lose control? Why does he choose to snap? Not in a confined space, not among close friends, but rather in public in a clear, firm voice and cutting. Some staff were shocked. Some are down. But some others were silent, transfixed. Because it's not just anger. This is a sound full of wounds. And it comes from someone who has always comforted others, even when he himself is broken. You think I'm a robot? Jin exclaimed in a sharp tone. Do you think I can stand here every day, without rest, without fatigue, just because I'm smiling on camera? No one answered. Not a single staff, manager, or technician dared to cut the line. They know it's not just about that day. This is accumulation, pressure, demands, and perhaps a small betrayal long buried in silence. Those words are chilling. But even more surprising is the continuation of Jin's nagging. He's not just talking about himself. He said a name. It highlights the attitude. He challenged the system. He even, bluntly, called HYB's decision dangerous to the humanity of idols. You said this was for my album, Jin continued. But why do I feel like this isn't about me at all? It's not about my music. It's about your target. About sales, about deadline. You use my name, but forget me as a human being. Emotions hang in the air. Someone from the production team briefly tried to calm him down, but Jin waved his hand, refusing to be stopped. He knows what he's doing. He realized the camera was on. He realized the microphone was still on. But for the first time, he doesn't care. The question is now, will this change everything? Will this be the moment remembered as the end of Jin's obedience and the beginning of his rebellion against the system? Or is this a sign that the genie has been harboring too many things and is now, finally, exploding? What really happened before this incident? And what is withheld from official documentation that will never be shown to the public? An internal source who did not want to be named said that the recording session was postponed for 3 hours after Jin's incident. Not because of technicalities, but because Jin's mood was so unstable that everyone was asked to make room. But even more hair stood on end. After the incident, Jin sat alone in the recording booth, headphones still clinging, and sang one of the most emotional songs on the album, Goodbye Me. According to the staff who heard him, he sang it while crying. Did I ask that a coincidence? The song is meant for someone or something. Why wasn't the track included in the final Echo track list? Jin never mentioned this incident directly in the media. But his body gestures after that, his facial expressions in the interview, even his silence when asked about Echo's production process, gave more clues than 1,000 words. He looked cooler, more awake, and, according to some fans, more honest. Too honest even, because after the incident, every sentence of the genie sounded like a hidden message, like a warning, like a heart that doesn't want to be packaged sweet anymore. Will HYB allow this incident to be forgotten? Or will there be internal sanctions against Jin? Or is this the beginning of something bigger, a revolution from within? There is no official confirmation. But rumor has it that after this incident, Jin requested that the recording of the Echo documentary be postponed. There are parts that he would like to edit himself. A piece that, according to him, is too fake to be aired as it is. Then an even crazier question arises. Will the genie divulge everything? Will there come a day when Jin really makes a long confession about the pressures of the idol system and drags the big names behind the scenes? We don't know. But what is clear, Jin's emotional outbursts are not just angry outbursts. It was a moment of recognition. And as we know from history, the truth that comes from wounds, much more shaking than just rumors. The question is now, are we ready to hear what he really wants to say? If one day he decides to really talk, as the army began to wonder why the songs on the Echo album sounded so heavy, so wounded, and unlike Jin's usual positive overtones. None of them expected that the answer to the question would come from the anger voiced directly by Jin himself. In front of the people he had always referred to as his second family, Jin, with his voice quivering, not out of doubt, but out of anger held back for too long, called out something he hadn't even uttered in years of his career. "You just want me to smile. But you forgot. I'm human," Jin said, in a cold tone that made one studio freeze, and no one has ever heard of this frontal genie. Even in the most difficult times, when fatigue, a busy schedule, until his military service, Jin always chose to hold back. But not this time. There's something different. There were wounds that he could no longer hide. And what is even more surprising? All this happens when HYB's built-in documentation camera is on. Did Jin deliberately speak when he knew he was being recorded? Is this an indirect announcement that he will no longer submit to pressure? Many believe that Jin knows exactly what he is doing. The microphone picks up every word. He knew the staff outside the recording booth were watching through monitors. And that is precisely its purpose. "You see me sing, but you never really hear me," said Jin. That sentence, which sounded like a line of a song, was actually a crushing satire. What happened after that kept many staff from sleeping through the night after the incident. The atmosphere in the studio changed completely. Some staff even claimed that they could not play back Jin's voice recording because it's too honest. One of the staffers said in a low voice in an anonymous interview, "We know Jin is tired, but no one expected him to make it this far." The question is, what exactly caused the genie to explode like that? Is there pressure from above? Is there a unilateral decision about the contents of the Echo album that does not fit his vision? Rumors began to spread that HYB had forced Jin to insert some songs that he did not write himself. Songs that are considered more commercial, easier to sell to the market, but do not reflect the soul. One of those songs was touted to be the album's title track, which shouldn't have been Jin's top choice. "The song I created from tears and memories was not chosen," said Jin, still in his angry session. "All you choose is the voice you think is safe." More than that, Jin also flicked about the duration of the recording that was too long. He said, "It's not a creative process. It's torture with a neater name." And not only that, Jin spoke about the moment he asked for a postponement because he wanted to visit his mother who was in hospital, and the request was denied. The words he spoke at that time made many who heard him cry. "My mom will probably be gone sooner than this song is finished. But you said, 'One more take, please, Hyung.' I'll remember that forever." Army began to speculate. Will Jin withdraw from the music scene? After the incident, not a few fans began to reread the entire lyrics of Echo. They're starting to see patterns. They begin to notice that there are unusual lines, as written not for fans, but rather for industry insiders themselves. Sentences like, "They said I was glowing, but the light was too hot. Every time I smile, a second of my time is stolen. If I stop today, will you understand or just count the losses?" These lyrics felt even more painful after the public learned of Jin's anger that was never officially reported. And the question now, is this a sign that the genie will take a surprising step? Will he leave the music world? Or will it fight the system in its own way? Scattered clues, and a strange thing at the Echo press conference a few days after the incident. Jin appeared in Echo's promotional press conference. But something is strange. He looked calm, too calm. His gaze was blank. His smile was flat. And when asked about the recording process, he replied with one short sentence. "This process opened wounds that I even forgot existed." The sentence made the conference room silent. Some reporters looked confused. Some others stared with a look of pity. But the most surprising? Jin did not elaborate further. He just shut up. His hands clenched on the table. He held something back, but didn't say it. Then when the show was over, there was one microphone that still caught Jin's voice when he went down the stage and said quietly to his manager, "They think I'm tired of recording, but I'm tired of being silent for too long." Is HYB preparing for massive censorship? Shortly after, one of the Ericut is a continuation and in-depth development of the article that has begun, uncovering layer after layer of the emotional, controversial, and questioning story behind the shocking Jin incident. It is worth remembering that this story is assembled narratively to give a detailed picture, a media epos that tries to open every corner of the story, from the pressure he felt all this time to the bitterness that made him explode in public. This article will take the reader through a long journey of emotions, internal conflicts, and inner struggles that have been veiled behind the glittering spotlight of the entertainment industry. I am the shadow of a recording studio that was originally considered a sacred place where works of art were created with great dedication. A shocking event occurred. The initially quiet and orderly atmosphere changed drastically when the voice of a genie full of anger and honesty suddenly filled the room. The look on his face, which had been synonymous with calmness and friendliness, instantly reflected a deep pain. His harsh words were not an ordinary expression of anger. They were a declaration of the oppression he had endured for so long, of hope fading amid the noise of a system that demanded perfection with no room for humanity. I still remember that moment, when the cameras that were just recording the creative process suddenly captured a moment that was so rare. Jin, with his eyes burning with pain, with his voice shaken by years of accumulated emotions, finally said, "Do you think I'm a robot?" The sentence was like a burst of lightning in the middle of a storm, as if demanding that the whole world listen. There is no more room for falsehood, no reason to pretend when all it feels is fatigue and disappointment. For the staff, the moment was a mirror reflection of a bittersweet reality. How much they ignored the existence of a human being behind the glorious image on the entertainment stage. When Jin voices his long-held grievances, he also insinuates subtly but sharply about a system of work that never leaves room for feelings. The atmosphere in the studio changed instantly, as if everything that had been covered by neatness and discipline was now beginning to unravel. Spaces that were once colored only by the strains of notes and musical instruments now resonate with heart-rending words. A staff member who was still stuck in silence recounted, "We knew he was tired, but never imagined that Jin would come to the point of wanting to call out the bitter truth." These words describe the depth of a long-held pressure, a pressure that makes him feel he is no longer valued as a human being, only as a means to achieve targets and sales figures. Behind every sharp sentence he throws, there is a story of unspoken sacrifice and anxiety. Jin once told a close friend in private about a request he had made to postpone the recording schedule in order to visit his mother in the hospital, a moment that was supposed to be affectionate but ended in a refusal that made him feel neglected. "How is it possible," she thought, "that I have to choose between professional duties and the basic right to be with my loved ones?" This is a dilemma that may never be known to the public, but is the main fuel for the explosive eruption of emotion. After the incident, the atmosphere in the work environment changed dramatically. The editing room, which was usually filled with laughter and jokes, suddenly felt gloomy, as if every corner of it held a bitter secret. Many staff chose not to talk about the incident directly, choosing to be silent for a while so that the wounds that had just opened would not get worse. However, behind the silence, whispers began to be heard. They wonder, has this system that has been considered to be followed without question begun to crack? Will this event pave the way for other artists to voice the truth that has been hidden behind the mask of smiles and perfection? Meanwhile, the The Army A community of fans who have been wholeheartedly supportive wavered between admiration and concern. Those who have long heard the gentle tones of the genie, who has become accustomed to her smile in every performance, are now faced